Hi, Emilia here. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a cardigan or a poncho using the V-stitch, the single crochet V-stitch. And I'll be making it using this Wims Merino from Furls Crochet, which is a set twist crochetess yarn, and 4mm or G crochet hook. And you'll also need scissors and a darning needle and a couple of stitch markers. You can find all the details about the size and materials in the blog post on coffeeandcrocheting.com, and you'll also find the material list in the description below. The cardigan will be made using US terms and is available in sizes extra small to 5 extra large. I'll be showing you how to make it in size small, and the other sizes can be found on the blog post. The cardigan will be made using the V-stitch. It looks like this. And I'll first show you how to make the V-stitch. So to begin, you cross the yarn, insert your fingers in the loop and pull through the end. You have a knot to attach your hook. To begin, chain 27. You yarn over, pull through the loop on the hook, and that's your chain, and continue until you have 27. When we are making it with 27 chains, we can also use it as our gauge swatch. We now have 27 chains and are ready to begin with the V-stitch. I also usually work in the back bumps, so let's find the back bumps. So you have your chain with your pretty V's here, so then you just turn it around and there you have a back bump. It's just one place, so I usually insert my hook like this under that. You typically need your finger to get it under, but it gives a really nice edge on the garment, so I really recommend going through the back bumps, taking that extra time. So you'll begin in the third chain from the hook, so 1, 2, 3, so we'll go through that back bump like this and make a single crochet. So you yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook, then we make a chain, 1, and then we'll make a single crochet in the same stitch. So you continue going through the same back bump and a single crochet. Then you skip 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and then in the third back bump you'll make a single crochet. So insert the hook through the back bump, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook, chain 1, and then make a single crochet in the same back bump. So that's the V-stitch. You skip 2 chains, so 1, 2, insert your hook, make 1 single crochet, chain 1 and 1 single crochet in the same stitch. So the V-stitch is a single crochet, 1 chain and a single crochet in the same stitch. So you skip 2, go through the back bump, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, skip 2, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, and continue all the way across. And you end with the V-stitch in the final chain. And then chain 2 and turn. You've now made your first row of V-stitches. For row 2 we'll make the V-stitch, but instead of in the chains we'll make them in the chain spaces that we made on the previous row. So we have our V-stitch here on the V-stitch from the previous row, and there you can find the chain space. So it's a bit tricky to find the chain space now on row 2. On row 3 it will be a lot easier already, but a good hint is to count. I'll remove my hook. So you count that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these straight lines down there, and then you know that your chain space is after 2 of these, so it's in the middle of these 4. So that's the place to insert your hook. I'll show you. So again I count that I have 1, 2, and then I'll insert my hook after the second to make my V-stitch, and then I yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over to chain 1, insert the hook in the same space and make a single crochet. So that was the V-stitch. And then again I count 1, 2 lines down, insert my hook. So you kind of skip the, you need to find the chain space on the previous row's V-stitch. So you skip this area and then go in and insert the hook in the chain 1 space from previous row to make a single crochet, chain 1 and a single crochet. So again 1, 2 straight lines, insert your hook, make a single crochet, chain 1 and a single crochet. So if you're in the UK, the single crochet is the same as a double crochet. So count again 1, 2 and make your V-stitch. That is a single crochet, chain 1 and a single crochet in the same stitch. And just continue all the way across. Just always make sure to go through both of the loops. And then end the row with the V-stitch, so you have 1, 2, insert the hook, and make your V-stitch. And then chain 2, and turn. You've now made 2 rows of the V-stitch. And to continue to make your gauge swatch, you just continue repeating row 2 until your work is 10 centimeters or 4 inches tall. So you'll just continue. Here we have our gauge swatch when it's ready. Now it's 4 inches tall or 10 centimeters. So to measure your gauge, you have your gauge swatch, and then you take your measuring tape and put it here next to a V-stitch. You see that it's a V there, and just measure across. And you should have 8 stitches across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You see these lines here? They are 1 V-stitch. So if you can't really find the V-stitches, then count lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And to count the rows, you see that this is 10 centimeters or 4 inches. You just need to count the rows, which you can see here, that you see a V there, that's 1 row, and then the next V, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and continue to count across. And this is 18 V-stitches. So your gauge is 8 V-stitches across and 18 in height. And we're ready to begin the pattern. So let's begin with our chains. So for size S, you'll need to chain 135 chains. We now have our foundation chain row and are ready to begin. So you'll just continue making in the same way as you did for your gauge swatch. So in the third back bump, you make a single crochet, chain 1, and a single crochet. Skip 2 stitches. In the third back bump, a single crochet, chain 1, and a single crochet. And just continue across until you've finished the whole chain. And after that, you'll continue with V-stitches until your work measures 60 centimeters in height 23.8 inches. That's for size S. Please check the pattern for your measurements. So we've now made the back section 60 centimeters or 23.8 inches in height. And we'll continue to split for the front sections. So you need 2 stitch markers. And you'll count from each edge and put a stitch marker in the middle of a V-stitch, where it depends on your size. So on size S we have 45 V-stitches. And we'll put a stitch mark in the 21st V-stitch from each edge. So you again can just count the pillars like this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 21. And here we'll put the stitch mark in the middle of the V-stitch, so in the chain space. And then we'll repeat from the other edge. So 21. And the stitch mark in the middle of the V-stitch, that is in the chain space. You will have a different amount of chains here depending on the size. To make the first front section, you continue here from where you ended the row on the back section. And just make V-stitches until the first stitch mark, ending with the final V-stitch in the final, or in the stitch with the stitch mark. So you'll just make a V-stitch all the way across. And then your final V-stitch in the stitch with the stitch mark. So insert the hook where the stitch mark is and make a V-stitch. And chain 2. And then turn your work. And continue to make V-stitches across. So this is the front section 1. Continue to make rows of V-stitches until it's time to make the pocket. So we've now made our front section here, front section 1, and it's now around 10-15 centimeters or 4 to 6 inches shorter than the back section, so we're ready to make our pockets. If you don't want pockets, just skip this step and continue making the front section until it's as long as the back section. So to make the pockets, you'll place stitch markers. Where you'll place the stitch markers depends on the size And on this size S, I've put the stitch markers in the 5th V-stitch from each end. So again, you can count the pillars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in the middle, I've put a stitch marker in the middle of the V-stitch. And the same from this edge, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in the middle of the V-stitch, a stitch marker. So we'll continue from our end and make V-stitches up until the stitch mark. I'm also in the stitch with the stitch mark. You just put the stitch marker to the side and make your V-stitch. And now when we're here, we're going to make chains. So to cover this section, because we won't crochet on this, so for size S, I'll make 33 chains. Please refer to the pattern to see how many chains to make for your size. If you know that you crochet your chains very tight, it might be a good idea to use a larger hook size here, so you get the same tightness between here. Around half a size to 1 size up is usually good. I have my 33 chains, and you can always check if they are too tight or not by making the link here, so you see that this easily goes here, so that's not too tight. And then I simply continue with the V-stitch here in the middle of the stitch mark. Chain 2, and then we turn. So we're not making the actual pocket at this moment, while only the opening to put in your hand in the pocket. So we continue with V-stitches on the next row. And here's the final V-stitch before the chains. And then we skip 2 chains and make a V-stitch in the back bump of the 3rd chain. Skip 2 chains and make a V-stitch in the back bump of the 3rd chain. Now we've made our final V-stitch in the chain and just continue to make a V-stitch here. Like this. And then we just turn our work and continue to make rows of V-stitches until this front section is as long as the back section. That is so that we have as many rows on the front section as the back section. So front section 2 is made in the same way as front section 1, with the difference that we will begin here from the stitch marker. So let's make a slip knot. And then we'll attach our yarn here in the V-stitch. So we insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop and pull through the loop on the hook. And then just continue by making a V-stitch in the stitch. And then all the way across. And then just continue across and in the same way as for your front section. Or as the previous front section 1. So I made my front section now as long as my back section, and I'm ready to add my pocket to my opening. The garment per se does not have a right or wrong side, so I'll decide it now and then just make sure to put the pocket on the same side on both of the front sections. So I'll have this side out, so then I fold up my front section like this. And then I'm ready to begin my pocket. So I take my yarn, I've attached it to my hook with a slip knot, and then I'll attach my yarn here in the final stitch before the opening. I insert my hook in the middle of the V-stitch, and then just yarn over and make a slip stitch there. Pull tight, and then I chain 1. So I've now attached my yarn. And then I just continue to make V-stitches across this until the final V-stitch here. So just like you would normally do the V-stitches across. And now we only have one V-stitch here before the end of the row. So here we make the final V-stitch of the row. And then chain and turn. And then just continue to make rows of V-stitches. So you continue here all the way there to the final V-stitch, and then turn and make rows of V-stitches until this is the inside of the pocket, until that's 1 to 2 rows shorter than the length of your front section. So our pocket is now a few rows shorter than the front section. So I have the hole here, and then we made this flap here. And we'll now just simply seam it here. So I'll begin from here, since I have my tail left after the final row here. And make sure that it's not too stretched. And now I see that I have 4 rows left on my front section, so I make sure that it's on the 4th row all the way across, so it's straight. And then I'll seam it using the mattress stitch. So I'll go under 2 loops here. And then I go back to the pocket and go under 2 loops. And then back here. And just continue until you've seamed all 3 sides here. After seaming the pocket, we'll make this attachment point for the belt. Here on the side, so I've made mine 9 rows above the pocket on row 9 and 13 after the pocket, but it's good to try it on already now to see where you have your waist, so you know where to put it in. Mark the place with the stitch marker. But I also have suggestions in the pattern on where to put it. So I'll go on the other side, since I already made an attachment point on this side. And on the 9th row after the pocket, so 1, 2, 3. It's here, I'll put the stitch marker. And then 1 on the 13th. So then I'll just take my yarn and attach it here with the slip knot. And then I'll chain 6. And then I'll make a slip stitch here on where I have my other stitch mark. So I'll insert my hook in the middle of that V-stitch and just make a slip stitch. And then chain 1. And then turn. And then in the chains I've just made, I'll make slip stitches in the back loop. So I insert my hook in the back loop, yarn over, and then pull through the loop. And continue until I've done 6 of them. And then I just cut off my yarn and pull through. And I now made a nice attachment point for my belt. Just weave in the ends here on the sides. After that we'll continue with the belt. So then we go on the back section, and now we need to count how many rows we have. So we count how many rows we have from the front section. So we put our stitch marker on the 39th and 43rd stitch for size S. So I'll use the same stitch markers. And put them on the 39th and 43rd row on the back section. So that's here. And here. And I'm ready to begin my belt. By turning it sideways, insert my hook, and attach it with a slip knot. And then make 4 single crochets. After your 4 single crochets, you turn, make a V-stitch in the first single crochet, skip 2 stitches and end the row with a V-stitch. And chain 2 and turn. And then continue with V-stitches all the way until your belt is at your desired length. And then repeat the same on the other side.